One of the most electrifying fighters in the welterweight division, Jorge Masvidal, is back in action. He's set to face another force to reckon with in the division, Gilbert Burns, as the co-main event of UFC 287. But as interesting as that sounds, is Masvidal really focused enough for that fight? Can he pull off a victory against a guy like Burns? And if he does, what exactly is next for Masvidal in the UFC? There's so much to talk about, so stay tuned as we get right into it. Jorge Masvidal has had one of the most exciting careers in the UFC. From joining the promotion back in 2013 with his former best friend, Colby Covington, Masvidal slowly rose up the ranks to become one of the most powerful strikers in the 170-pound division and in the UFC as a whole. In his early days, he went through some spectacular fighters like Michael Chiesa, Tim Means, and Patrick "Pat" Healy. But unfortunately for Masvidal, his early win streak in the UFC ended pretty quickly. Between 2014 and 2016, Masvidal held a 6-3 record, which isn't particularly bad, but it wasn't enough at the same time to propel him into title contention. And why are we bringing this up? Well, I'll let you know in a moment. Anyway, it was back in 2017 that Masvidal's career skyrocketed to the front line of top welterweight fighters in the division, particularly after he knocked the lights out of UFC legend, Cowboy Donald Cerrone. Now, why this fight was particularly interesting is that Donald Cerrone had only been defeated twice in the last 4 years before he faced Masvidal. And those two losses came in the hands of Rafael dos Anjos. In that 4-year span, Donald Cerrone had gone through some of the toughest fighters in the UFC, while Masvidal, on the other hand, literally had only one fight against Jake Ellenberger, a month before he fought Cerrone. Yet Masvidal was able to send Cerrone into the abyss with a sensational knockout in the second round. This was basically one of those fights that make UFC fans realize how good a fighter is. And since this was the case for Masvidal, the UFC put him against Demian Maia and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. But sadly, Masvidal lost both fights to a decision and vanished from the UFC. He was gone for almost 2 years before making a comeback in March 2019 in a fight against Darren Till. Now, for someone gone for almost 2 years, a lot of fans felt Masvidal might have lost his knockout power. But they were wrong. When the fight started, Darren Till had the upper hand. He successfully dropped Masvidal with a vicious left-hand punch in the first 10 seconds of the fight. But Masvidal didn't give up. The fight was fast-paced, but in the twinkle of an eye, Masvidal was able to land a crazy, and we mean crazy, left-hand swing that sent Darren Till's semi-conscious body to the canvas of the octagon. In his next fight, Jorge Masvidal faced Ben Askren at UFC 239 in Askren's UFC debut. Now, if there's one thing we know about Ben Askren, it's the fact that he has been a dominant MMA fighter all over the world. This is a guy that toured around the United States and defended the Bellator Welterweight Championship, went to Singapore, Asia, to win the One Welterweight Championship, and finally came back to the US to cement his mark as one of the greatest fighters of all time. But Masvidal had something to say about that. In July 2019, Jorge Masvidal set the record for the fastest knockout in MMA history with a flying knee kick that sent Askren into the shadow realm, just 5 seconds into the first round. Like, it was unbelievable and totally crazy. Defeating a guy like Askren in such fashion earned him a title contenders fight against Nate Diaz, which he won via doctor's stoppage, and then he had his stock go higher after crushing it out with Kamaru Usman for the welterweight title under 6 days' notice. Masvidal was actually game to take on one of the most dominating welterweight champions in the UFC history with just 6 days' notice. This happened because UFC 251 was initially set to be headlined by Usman and Gilbert Burns. However, just a few days away from the fight, Burns tested positive for COVID-19 and Jorge Masvidal stepped in. Although he lost the 5-round battle via unanimous decision, Masvidal's stock only went higher after his fight against Usman. But eventually, Jorge Masvidal lost to Kamaru Usman in their rematch and most recently to his former buddy, Colby Covington. Now Masvidal has been out for almost a year and is back to face Gilbert Burns, as we already said. So first things first, can Masvidal defeat Burns? Well, from what we already know, Masvidal is always explosive with his comebacks, so maybe this will play out just the same. But against a guy like Gilbert Burns, the odds don't seem stacked in his favor. Gilbert Burns is a very tough fighter for anyone at all. We saw how he was almost able to tame the Wolf Khamzat Chimaev in their 3-round fight back at UFC 273. Before that fight, Khamzat had only taken about 3 significant strikes. He had never been taken down and had never gone past the first round. But Burns was able to break all these records and still get a slim chance of knocking Khamzat's lights out. And to tell you the truth, no one expected Masvidal to come back and fight a guy like Gilbert Burns, because Masvidal was first offered Michael Chandler, who he rejected. Then there were hints of a fight with Conor McGregor, but apparently that's not going to happen either. So now that we're here and the fight will take place in a couple of days, how's the fight going to go? According to their fighting style, Masvidal combines elements of boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's also a skilled striker with a powerful left hook and is known for his precision striking, footwork, and head movements. In his striking, Masvidal likes to use a variety of techniques such as jabs, hooks, uppercuts, and kicks to keep his opponents guessing. He's also proficient in the clinch and likes to use his Muay Thai skills to deliver devastating knees and elbows. In our opinion, Gilbert Burns is the perfect dance partner for Masvidal because their skills kinda cancel out. Burns is known for his aggressive, high-pressure fighting style and his strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. He's a decorated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and has won numerous championships in the sport. In his MMA fights, he often looks to take the fight to the ground and use his grappling skills to control his opponents and look for submissions. And in addition to his grappling skills, Burns has developed a powerful striking game. He has heavy hands and is particularly dangerous with his hooks and uppercuts. He also possesses excellent footwork and head movement, which allows him to avoid his opponent's strikes and set up his own attacks. So going by their different fighting styles, we think this fight would be fought on their feet. Gilbert might be a little explosive in the beginning, but if Masvidal can control the pace, he has a good shot at winning. We personally don't believe this fight will go the distance, because both these men have that knockout power, but this is MMA and anything is possible. Again, Jorge Masvidal is known for his game-bred fighting spirit, but we don't think he will be so focused on this fight. And the reason is that Masvidal is still battling a legal court case over the attack of Colby Covington. You've probably heard the story before, but to give a little insight into what really went down, Masvidal allegedly attacked Colby after their fight back in March 2022. Masvidal was arrested a day after the incident and charged with aggravated battery, resulting in great bodily harm, and 1 count of criminal mischief. Masvidal surrendered to Miami Beach police and was detained at Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Center on a $15,000 bond. He was later released on conditional release. But the case isn't over. He has a court hearing in May 2023, which is a month after the fight. So the big question is, would this legal case affect him negatively in the fight? Oh, but here's a better question. What happens if Masvidal actually wins? Like right now, the road to a title shot in the UFC welterweight division is crazy stacked. There's Colby, Belal Muhammad, Khamzat Chimaev, and of course, Shavkat Rakhmonov. All of these guys are eligible to get a title shot, but which of them would actually get it? Jorge Masvidal personally wanted a fight against Leon Edwards because he thought Edwards was going to lose the rematch to Kamaru Usman. Edwards and Masvidal have been a long-standing beef for a while, so now that Edwards won the rematch and is still the welterweight champ, he personally wants a fight against Masvidal. But according to Dana White, Colby Covington is next in line no matter what happens at the Masvidal vs. Burns fight. However, Edwards doesn't feel Colby is deserving of this shot because he was out for over a year without any injury and shouldn't be granted a title shot right away. But right now, things aren't clear as to the path Dana and the matchmaking crew will take here. But one thing is for certain, and that's the fact that these videos showing on your screen right now are just as awesome as this one. So click on either one of them, and I'll see you there.